When I began to see the power of understanding prompt engineering inside of the AI tools, and I really looked to Reid Hoffman here. Forgot the name of his company now, but his company as well as Hey GPT, those really influenced me a lot. I got my entire company trained and certified. This is my offshore company. Trained and certified in the tools. And we have just seen it explode our productivity. So I think the intimidation threat factor can be overcome with just a little bit of courage and a little bit of effort. I mean, am I wrong? Would you not agree?
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Treefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is Anka Trifan, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Welcome to another episode of the Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible, technical, and planning advice for anyone in the events industry. This podcast is brought to you by Treefan Events, a woman-owned and operated boutique event production agency that provides the planning strategy, production technology, and technical expertise to host a successful virtual, hybrid, or in-person event. And I am your host, Anka Platon Trifan. If you're new to our podcast, during our current season 7, we're diving deep into the captivating world of AI, its practical uses for events, the opportunities, and the threats that we should all be aware of. We'll be exploring how this powerful technology is not just creating this revolution in our world, and especially in the way we plan and manage and produce events, but also transforming the way attendees experience the events that we plan, and even, entertainment and all the other opportunities that are there. And so today we have a very special guest who is a true maverick in the world of corporate entertainment and event innovation. Joining us is Kraig, the founder of Rock the C-Suite, executive producer and showrunner of the world's greatest corporate entertainment and on-stage performance event. Kraig's groundbreaking corporate performance event, Rock the C-Suite, combines live rock and roll with comedy and choreography and delivering this exceptional, unforgettable experiences that I can't wait for you to hear more about. With a remarkable entrepreneurial track record and a mission to bring excitement to the business world, Kraig is a unique blend of business expertise and humor, and he's here to discuss the radical shift towards not just the eventful AI, but also the powerful fusion of performance arts and corporate communication. Throughout this episode, we'll delve into how Kraig is spearheading the redesign of corporate events by harnessing not just the AI technology that we're going to touch on, but also his creativity to create experiences that captivate and engage our audiences. We'll also explore the magic that happens when performing arts meets corporate communication, all powered by incredible capabilities that we have at our fingertips today. You can learn more about Kraig by following the links in the episode notes. And in the meantime, we're going to welcome Kraig to the show and embark on a captivating journey through the world of corporate entertainment, eventful AI, and the unbridled power of executive presence on the stage. Get ready to be inspired and discover the secrets that lie behind transforming corporate events into some unforgettable experiences. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome to the show, Kraig. How are you today?
I am doing great, and thank you for that kind introduction. It's great to be here.
Well, we're very thrilled to have you here and discuss the exciting world of corporate events and the radical shift towards this new type of entertainment that you've been spearheading. So with that in mind, I'm just curious, when you are behind some of those experiences that you are creating, blending entertainment and business, which sounds truly unique and fascinating, if you ask me, I can't wait to hear more about how did you get into this in the first place. Okay, so why don't you walk us, as our first question, through the inspiration and the philosophical background behind writing and producing such a groundbreaking corporate performance? How did the idea of combining rock and roll, comedy, choreography come to life in the first place for corporate events of all places?
I think it all started in probably sixth grade, to be honest with you. I had a knack for telling stories. In fact, I remember when I was writing stories for class, and then, you get up and you read them, I would always incorporate plots and subplots that included my peers and my friends and give them shout outs. And I remember one time the teacher telling the class, if you don't calm down, we are not going to let Kraig tell his story this afternoon. So I think it all got started in junior high and high school and college when I did a lot of performing arts. But beyond that, I started my first company years ago. We grew it from 0 to 30 million in sales. It was a tech company, grew fast, sold it to a private equity company in the West Coast. And everybody did well. My investors did well. The management team, we all did well. And I took a few years off. But when I came back, I wrote a couple of books. And my first
I bet you were burned out a little bit.
Yes, I was. Yes, I needed a break. I took 5 years off from the work world and did some nonprofit work. And have you ever been to Brazil, to the Bane, to the Bone? I was on the board of directors for an outreach to abandoned children in Brazil. But anyway, loved that period of my life and came back and wrote my first book. And the first book was rooted in corporate messaging, sales messaging, marketing messaging, and it got into the right hands. And I started getting invited to speak at conferences all over the world, really. Then when you're selling a book and promoting a book, you want to do that, because it helps get the book out. It's all part of the drill, really. And I think at that time, I got invited to do webcasts were very popular. So with companies like LinkedIn, Salesforce, InsideSales.com, a lot of tech companies, I began doing webcasts, and we would get thousands of people to attend these webcast events. And in all honesty, I think the reality of attending the conferences, both in person and virtually, as a speaker mostly, and sometimes, of course, as an attendee, I began to realize that the typical format of keynote, breakout, come back for keynote, and finally networking time. And I began to realize that in reality, most of the conferences had one pizzazz speaker. The rest of the speakers were less pizzazz.
We're filling in.
We're filling in, that's right. And we did a survey actually to 300 executives, and we said, hey, what do you think about corporate events? Are they exceptional? Are they rock star events? We put in words like that. And the number one descriptor word that was chosen the most was snooze fest. So we got a little validation from the survey. And at that point, I just realized, wait a minute, there's got to be room for corporate messaging to be expressed through performing arts. And I've had a love, of course, for theater and music, and I write music, and I love improv comedy. I've been involved with improv comedy for years, and it was a very natural birthing of both a movement and a process, and now finally a product. It's been awesome.
That's truly remarkable, Kraig. The fusion of entertainment and corporate communication and corporate events, such a game changer. And I think it's still so needed, especially in today's day when everybody, going back after COVID, they were hoping that we would do things differently. And then so many fall back to do things exactly the old way that they're used to, right? So like shaking things up a little bit through a different format of how you can deliver the messaging in a fun, entertaining way, I feel like it's needed more than ever. So before we also tackle onto the, the radical shift, our industry towards AI. I would love to hear more about what exactly sets Rock the C-Suite apart as the world's greatest corporate entertainment performance. How does it leverage the creativity that you bring to the table, but also some of the AI that you mentioned in our pre-recording time that you've used, ChatGPT, you've used this and that. How do you implement some of the tools that are available now? And again, they're tools in your toolbox, right? But to really use them to create a truly immersive experience for your audiences.
That's a really great question. I will tell you that delivering personalized content, that's the real key. It's got to be, I would actually use the word hyper personalized for the audience. So for example, anyone can go to a rock concert. I'm friends with Bono. I'm going to go see U2 at the Sphere in Vegas when they open up in the fall. I've been to dozens of U2 concerts and Rolling Stones concerts and all of it, and I'm a big fan. But when things are rewritten and hyper personalized for the audience, it's a dramatically different experience. And so what we worked real hard is including key elements of performing arts, which we take classic rock music that most everybody would know, think the Rolling Stones, think Led Zeppelin, think AC/DC, and we rework the lyrics that is spot on for the audience as well as the production company, the promotion company for the event itself. And so we do the same with the improv comedy. So the improv comedy, key words, key topics, all sort of rejiggered, you might say, to appeal to topics, trends, metrics, and outcomes that are at the heart of the audience's mind. And so when you begin to think the way the audience thinks, when you begin to demystify the topics and the trends that are top of mind for them, and then when you rework the lyrics or any aspect of the performing arts, music, improvisational comedy, onstage choreography, gift giving, celebrating birthdays. We do a Beatles song where you say it's your birthday, and we have the dancers come out with these massive bottles of champagne and sparklers on it if the fire code allows us, and we just hand it to the people, and they just love to be affirmed. So this combination of relevance, hyper-personalization, affirmation, and blending and wrapping all of that into the performing arts is really the heart and soul. And to your other question, we'll get into it more deeply, but I could not do it without the assistance of AI, guaranteed. It saves me an enormous amount of time and helps me at everything from lyrics to run-of-show development to storyboard development for videos and all of it. So I hope that answered your question.
Totally. I have actually follow-up questions because you're mentioning how, this audience is so in tune with some of those songs. Now, that assumes that probably they're not millennials. What do you do with a millennial audience that probably is not very in touch with the likes of Bono, U2, Led Zeppelin, and all they listen to is Taylor Swift?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? There are two answers to that. One is I did a show at Caesar's Palace a few months ago, and there was an individual there who was one of the senior executives at Essence Magazine and all of the different properties. And he said, Kraig, I need to meet with you because I want to ask you to do the same thing, but I want it to be hip hop and rap. Can you do it? And I said, absolutely. So we're having that conversation right now to tailor it for his particular audience. And I think the other point I would say to that is, surprise to me is that over the years in my consulting and advisory work that I did as a spinoff of having written books and things, I've worked with a lot of young people. And I've been absolutely shocked as to how many young people are very dialed into classic rock music. They'll often tell me, oh yeah, my dad used to play that all the time. And we have albums now. So we have a vinyl. We just got a shipment of vinyl in. And when I'm with young people all the time, they always ask me, oh, can I get one of your vinyl albums? I've got a turntable. I'd love to. So it's kind of funny. You might be surprised how much in tune younger people are with classic rock music, but we can transcend all that. It just takes a little more effort because it's not quite the same music I grew up with and have immersed myself in over the years.
Absolutely. Obviously, the classics are the classics for a a reason. But again, you'd be surprised, how something that we grew up with, and back in my radio days, actually, I used to have those top 10 rock ballads, which was select every week a new rock ballad to go to the top. And it was fantastic, but it was the era, it was the time, it was something that it was so in tune with what we were listening to back in the 90s. Nowadays, I'm like, I don't know if that would be so relevant. Probably I have to definitely work on my skill set of choosing the right music for the right audience. But moving forward with the conversation and shifting our focus to the collaborative aspect of crafting this type of remarkable corporate experiences in the context of combining live rock and roll comedy and, as you said, choreography, as well as, what did you mention? The improv. Yes, that's right. How does collaboration between event stakeholders play a pivotal role in achieving outstanding results and transforming some of those corporate events that you get to work on into some truly memorable experiences? Can you shed some light on the importance of this collaborative process?
I sure can. We work very closely, really on a partnership level with groups that really are sponsoring us and that are inviting us in to speak to their audience. And we work very closely to thoroughly understand their audience. So we've created some surveys, through AI has helped us with that significantly. And what we really understand, I want to get back to something I mentioned earlier, is I call it the 4 pillars of executive thought: topics, trends, metrics, and outcomes. So we work very hard at the planning level to ascertain, really to identify those 4. What topics are trending very highly amongst this audience base? What concepts are trending? What metrics? Smart people think quantitatively. What quantitative metrics are they examining and are important to them? And then finally, outcomes for the audience. What sort of outcomes is the audience looking to achieve in not only their general career life, but by attending this specific event? And as we go through the exercises of defining that, collaborating with our sponsors and with conference producers to fully understand that personalized aspect, then we finally create the hyper-personalized run of show that includes all of the assets that we've been talking about.
Very good. So it's basically what you're saying is, and again, I couldn't agree more, the collaboration is definitely at the livelihood of any planning of a successful event. But what you're saying is, and I think this was something that a previous guest might have said it, is when it comes to collaborating with different stakeholders, may that be client, vendors, audiences, speakers, sponsors, whatever, everybody that might be involved, it's almost like orchestrating a symphony, right? And you can relate to that as, a musical person yourself. Each element must harmonize with the other elements in order to create this cohesive and unforgettable experience. And I personally learned that over the years, when we collaborate effectively, we tap into a wealth of creative ideas and resources that really would be impossible in isolation, right? So with that, you touched a little bit on how you use AI to create your run of shows, your scripting, storyboarding, and all of that. How do you envision AI reshaping the corporate event scene, and what insights can you share on maybe some of the challenges and the trends that you like to address, coming from also a tech company that you were successful to exit out of? I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. I can tell you that I think the first thing I would say is when I got introduced to AI, and specifically it was ChatGPT, I dove right in, and I began seeing remarkable outcomes. My business, what I do requires a lot of content to be developed. In addition to Rock the C-Suite and Kraig Live, which are my corporate entertainment entities, I also own an offshore workforce company named The New Workforce that does a lot of marketing, graphic design, content writing, just a whole variety of things. When I began to see the power of understanding prompt engineering inside of the AI tools, and I really looked to Reid Hoffman here. Forgot the name of his company now, but his company, as well as Hey GPT, those really influenced me a lot. I got my entire company trained and certified. This is my offshore company. Trained and certified in the tools. And we have just seen it explode our productivity. Well, let me back up and answer your first question. I think what I want to say is that I continue to be amazed at how people sort of, I don't want to use the word write it off, but dismiss AI and don't really embrace it. And as you know, unless you dive in and really start working with it, it's like everything else. If you don't have a hunger and a thirst, then you're not going to get healthy. You're not going to get the benefits, So,
but I think there's also a bit of a threat, right? Like some people feel intimidated. Like, let's just take Midjourney, right? Midjourney, it's not an easy tool to harness. On top of everything, it's not easy to just go and get on it to begin with, right? So like you said, if you're not hungry to want to learn more and understand more, you're probably only going to get like this much, right?
Agreed. And I mean, I posted on LinkedIn this morning, and part of a short little story that I did that conforms to, not even a story, but a short essay, you might say, that conforms to some best practices to get views. I included a Midjourney image that I created last night that fit the theme, and the thing had 3,000 impressions within 45 minutes, and I think the image had a lot to do with it. So I don't know how to answer the question other than, it was intimidating for me. And when I first, but just diving in. In fact, I had one close friend real smart guy, founder of a fintech company, grew it, sold it, did great, brilliant guy. And I really just leaned on him to mentor me with AI tools initially. And I said, hey, Sean, show me this and show me that. And he gave me some quick tips and such, even before I dove into Reid Hoffman's company and some of the other tools. So I think the intimidation threat factor can be overcome with just a little bit of courage and a little bit of effort. I mean, am I wrong? Would you not agree?
No, absolutely. And I think it's like you just said and touched on such an important aspect like mentorship, right? If you don't know, ask. I was just talking to someone the other day about how, even ChatGPT sounds like basic to us, right? But there's people that are like, I don't know how to use it. And I'm like, well, why don't you ask it to teach you how to use it, right? Like actually just another function of this tool that you have at your fingerprints. So mentorship, asking for help and asking the right questions and finding resources that can support you in this search, you're right. Like it kind of takes away most of the excuses that we can think of. But that's not to say that, AI and what we are embracing right now is a magic wand. There's certainly some challenges and there's certainly some things that we should be wary of. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think there are great benefits, and I do think there are some things we should be wary of. I don't know how deeply I want to go there, but I do have concerns about the ethical issues and harm that AI can bring. But I will tell you on a positive note, AI really inspired me to begin working on a new product that we will probably release next year. And it is a performing arts product. And I call it, at the moment, my placeholder name for this product is called Soliloquies. And I began writing these short soliloquies, not stories, but essays is almost the best word I can use. Soliloquy is the best word, about a topic. Like one was called Two Secret Weapons, and it was about the power of gratitude and appreciation. And I matched it up with some rock music in the background. And the selection of both the words of the soliloquy itself, along with finding the right music to marry it with, all was generated by my work inside of AI. And I began to realize that was just almost an accident. And so then I began to make more of these. And then I started posting them on LinkedIn, and they started getting the most traction of some of the things that I posted. And then I began to create storyboards with some cinematic video to be applied to the content. And AI helped me with all of that. And now finally, I can whip out a soliloquy, as I refer to it, in probably less than an hour that would have taken me probably 3 days to write, without the discovery of how AI could have helped me every step of the way in that process. And on top of it, I have a new product that I like to think is destined for Broadway, because I'm starting to create a theme now where it's talking about the journey of an individual's life. And of course, there'll be some personal aspects to it. A lot of it will be fictional. A lot of it will be my own experience. But I can tell you, without the stimulating and captivating and really almost overwhelming assistance from AI, none of it would have been possible.
I love the fact that you said that it sparked your creativity to get into this new product and go down this road. And I'm sure that maybe eventually in time, it would have popped out of your creative tank eventually somehow. But the speed at which you were able to, go from concept to actually execution, it sounds amazing. So what a brilliant example to give right there. So thank you so much for that. Now, obviously, we understand that AI has lots of potential. It will eventually redefine a lot of the corporate events that we attend right now, but it will have to be done thoughtfully and responsibly, which is quite crucial, going back to some of the ethical concerns that we didn't touch on, but we all have. Now, because we won't have much time to go down that route, maybe that should be a conversation for another episode where we just dive deep into that and demystify that part of the equation, the side of the same topic, right? I would love to explore the fascinating blend of performing arts and corporate communication, because I remember reading your bio and you have this claim that Rock the C-Suite is the most immersive corporate event in history, which is quite impressive, right? To say that. So can you share with us how this exceptional event creates unprecedented velocity of goodwill with its audiences, and how does, AI have played such a role in achieving this remarkable impact?
Sure. So the greatest corporate entertainment event in the history of the world. Well, it's probably more of a tagline than necessarily. In fact, let's just say I've applied for that job.
I had to question it.
So consider it an application for my viewers to determine. But I think the best answer I could give you is that invite you to one of our shows. I'll have to.
I would love to. You drink me enough to be like,
I'll send you a vinyl album if you like. We just got a fresh shipment in. That would be awesome. You can tell me what you think about the music. But in answer to your question, I'm going to give it to you the best way I can, is that I have known intuitively since I was a child that there is power in the performing arts. As I grew into adulthood and I began to become immersed in business, I never left my love and my roots for the creative arts. For example, living in downtown Chicago most of my adult life, I always had a subscription to the Goodman Theater, which may be the best regional theater troupe in the world, potentially. The Steppenwolf Theater, a bit racy, but great work. Second City. I never, ever left that part of me. I collaborated with improv comedy teams at Second City. And I think I say that because I found my life immersed in business professionally, but my personal life immersed in the creative arts. And I had this battle in my mind all the time that there's far more goodness, far more efficacy, far greater retention and understanding and effectiveness through poetry, through music, through comedy. Comedy is fantastic for society and culture because not only do we laugh, but we think about things a little bit more differently. And so I think the best answer I could give you there is this life journey of sort of weighing in the balance. Hey, Kraig, which is more effective? That book that you just wrote that hit 11 bestseller lists, or that Rolling Stones concert or that blues club that you went to last week? And the truth is, the performing arts won out every single time. So I think with that philosophical backdrop, that led me to create what we've created. And not only do we have Rock the C-Suite, but a lot of folks say, Kraig, we don't quite have the budget for a full band and choreography and for an improv
and lighting
comedy.
and pyrotechnics.
Yes.
The whole production element, right?
Exactly. So I do MC, and I do energy bumps in between keynotes and go out on stage and have rock music going and get everyone dancing and all of it. And I guess the best thing I could say in answer to your original question that I've circled a little bit is that the wow factor from the audience, the surveys that they complete, they just say every time, we've never seen anything like this. Give us more, give us more, give us more. So with that, I guess our tagline, the world's greatest corporate entertainment company.
I love it. Well, I'm sure our listeners are more than eager to experience that and also hear more about, the specific applications and benefits of how you have achieved this remarkable impact and captivated your audience in ways that they want more. But before we delve into that, we're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our podcast sponsor and supporter. And when we return, Kraig will talk about the importance of executive presence while delivering mesmerizing experiences and performances, as well as his advice on how to cultivate inspiration for artistic creators and development. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifanevents.com. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we have the incredible Kraig on our show, the founder of Rock the C-Suite, executive producer and showrunner of the world's greatest corporate entertainment and on-stage performance event. And we have dived into that, and now we're embarking on a captivating journey through the world of corporate entertainment and the unbridled power of executive presence on the stage. So as we approach towards our end of the conversation, Kraig, I feel like we cannot do that without actually touching on this topic that's pretty close to your heart from what I can tell, and you're really passionate about executive presence. So with your love for stage and the power of AI that you have definitely talked about quite in detail earlier in our conversation, how do you personally maintain your own executive presence while delivering these mesmerizing performances, considering the demanding nature of our industry?
That is a very thoughtful and thought-provoking question. I will do my best. I will tell you, I think a little history for context might help. I think I mentioned to you earlier that I started a tech company years ago. It grew fast, sold it, took some time off. The company that I partnered with very closely and ultimately acquired my company was based on the West Coast. And there was a senior executive there, chief marketing officer, who really mentored me. When we began working on a partnership basis, he really became like a true, almost blood brother, big brother, spiritual brother to me. And he helped me understand, I was an entrepreneur. I was a little bit of a wild man, right? Cowboy, do it my way. Hey, it got us to 30 million, but it probably wasn't going to get us much further. So his name was Michael. And Michael just began in his own thoughtful, kind, but direct way, mentoring me about better organizational skills, mentoring me about strategic planning, mentoring me about submitting plans that are analyzed by others. And, it's funny, even though it's not a stage presence, he did cultivate in me an executive presence that has really served me in my other ventures going forward in life, both nonprofit ventures, as well as some of my current, entrepreneurial ventures.
Would you say a more like mature presence, a more like confident presence versus like more scattered?
I think that would be a fair statement. And forcing planning, like the first 3 years of the growth of my first company, it was just kind of me, and I amalgamated
bootstrapping.
Yeah. Bootstrapping is right. I was in the bullpen. We had 20 salespeople, 30, I guess, with $1 million quote each. And I'm constantly involved in all the deals. That wasn't going to scale, So Michael had a great impact on me in that way. Another thing, if I could, is when I was showrunner and did work with the World Leaders Forum, I had the privilege of sharing the stage with President George W. Bush, as well as Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the UK. And in addition to sharing the stage, as showrunner, I was involved in planning and I was involved in a lot of background conversations. But I will tell you, being able to spend a significant amount of time, I don't mean months and months, but hours and hours and hours with individuals who had that level of authority, responsibility, maturity, and global experience sort of under their belt had a profound impact on me. In fact, I was able to stay in touch with Tony Blair for a couple of years after that. Not daily, not every day, but occasional conversations. And I think that interacting with those two individuals, along with one of my favorite people in the world, Bono of U2, and watching him fulfill his mission in life, which is defending the poor of the earth, much more so than being a rock star. I mean, if you sit with Bono, he will tell you the rock star is coincidental and gave him the power and the leverage to do the philanthropical things that are at his heart. And he's far more about defending the poor of the earth than he is the Joshua tree. So I think that interacting with people of that caliber who were willing to invest a little bit of time in me had a tremendous impact in creating executive presence that then later spun over into every aspect of my life, not just the stage, but as an executive, as a planner, as a strategic planner, and a problem solver. So I hope that answered your question. I gave it my best shot.
No, that's amazing. I love that perspective and how it has changed and impacted you personally, and how now you have the ability and there's potential for you to do that for others that might not have the chance to be best buds with Tony Blair, or, you know, go and play, I don't know, pickleball with Bono or something. Now, as an artist who has pioneered the fusion of entertainment and corporate communication, your creative journey must be a very inspiring one, I can only imagine. For any new budding artists that are inspiring to follow some of the footsteps that you have laid, I'm pretty sure in some of the books that you just mentioned, what advice do you have in order to cultivate inspiration so that they can come up with their own artistic creations and development? And we're talking far more than go to ChatGPT and prompt it to give you some ideas, right? How can they push the boundaries and create truly inspiring experiences that have lasting impacting effect on their audiences or their future audiences?
That's a beautiful question. I will tell you that I think I do have an answer for you that's relevant. And that is, you know, in the last 4 years of my life, 4 years ago, let me say, I made a commitment to myself. What are the 3 things that are going to help me become the best I can be, the best Kraig Kleeman that I can be? And there were 3 things that were very clear to me. One was to experience spiritual renewal. The other was to achieve mental clarity. And the third was to make a profound commitment to physical health and physical fitness.
I can't wait to touch on that. So just touch on the 2 first ones.
Okay, I'll touch on the 2 first. The 2, and we'll look forward to the 3rd, is created a space for quiet and solace and away from the noise of life. And I'm not talking about a spiritual retreat or some retreat once a quarter. I'm talking about 4 to 5 hours daily. When I began making that kind of commitment to those 3 elements, which I practice still to this day, and it might be 3 days a week, it might be 5 days a week, it's rarely less than 3. And when I completely withdraw, completely unplug, and give myself to the power of quiet, inner peace, then there's a level of inspiration that could never have happened without it. My life used to be filled with checking my cell phone every little break and every email and every text and, oh my gosh, news feeds. And now I just said no to all of it. And I can tell you that the inspiration from most everything that we've been talking about today was able to bubble up, and it was all in there, but it was able to bubble up and manifest as the result of inner quiet.
I am so jealous right now when you speak about that, because like one of my fantasies is that one day I will retrieve from life in the middle of a cabin in the woods and nobody will find me just so I can finish writing this damn book that is like waiting heavily on my soul. But I don't have the time for it because I have too many notifications popping up all the time on my devices, right? So actually, as a matter of fact, you were just mentioning it right now. You're actually tuning in from a place that is very secluded. You could probably tell a little bit in the fluctuation of the Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's amazing. So touching on the second one that you just mentioned.
The second one, which was what? Refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
You said you have three important points that have really changed your creativity and has enhanced it in ways that nothing else has. And the first one was just searching, seeking, making a priority when it comes to quiet and just secluded time where honestly, I have small kids. Like, I don't know if leaving them for 3 hours it works for this season of my life, but maybe one day in the future. Okay. And I know it can be so impractical for a lot of people, right? I'm wondering, before you answer the second question, actually, I'm wondering if there's any tips you can give for someone that might not have the type of flexibility to do that. Is there any other way to like unplug, detox, figure out ways to like infuse your creativity back into your life?
Great question. And let me just say, I'm a father and my kids were young at one time, so I fully understand that fully. And, I'm at a different season, they're individuated now and they don't require hands-on and such. But I will tell you, notwithstanding, if you looked at my life 5 years ago, for example, before I got on this in a deeply committed way, this journey, you might as well have thought I had 3 toddlers running around because I acted like I was that busy. Like this thing, I was glued to it, I was glued to, Wi-Fi is everywhere. I can't even get in my Range Rover without getting bombarded with Wi-Fi messages on the display, So, I think it's like everything else. It's determination. It's when a person is determined. And I don't think people realize how much determination can be tapped and pulled out of them until they make the effort. But when someone says, I'm going to be determined with a capital D, and you know what? Rather than watching, like I never watch TV anymore. It's not that I think it's a sin. It's just because and honestly, it just it's all so negative. It sort of brings me down. And further, it keeps me from being out. And unfortunately for me, I think I told you I bought this condo. The pandemic, I left Chicago and I'm way up in the bluffs, like small mountains. So for me to go hike 3 miles, I just walk out my front door. And I recognize not everyone has that. But I think the best I could say is determination. Find where you can do it. Find where, have to get the kids in bed or where you can get a babysitter being a mom. Or in my case, turning off the TV and going out and hiking in the mountains versus playing on social media or something. We can really find the time, I think, for most of us, if we go after it in a determined manner with a capital D.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I need my quiet space, quiet time in the morning, especially. I wake up an hour and a half to 2 hours earlier, even if it's 5 a.m. And it's sometimes I'm like, I'm so exhausted, but I need it because otherwise I feel like my day is just going to hell in a basket because I'm scattered and I'm just not focused and I lose time in between tasks because I haven't had that time to really recharge in that way. So I love that you just mentioned those things because yes, it takes time. And it takes determination and it takes, the willingness to want to choose a quiet hike somewhere versus Netflix. And we all want to be entertained, but we are entertained at such a pace and rate that we forget what it's like to actually be quiet with our own thoughts. So we can actually extract things out of there that might be helpful and might be different and might solve a problem into the world just because we're so uniquely positioned to do that with our own experiences and our own life journey. So coming back to the third element, and I think the second one was spiritual awakening, and the third element that we mentioned, which I love to talk more about, but just because it's super close to my heart, it's something that actually I delve deeply into just the last season, and that is mental and physical fitness. Just because when we work events, and you've done plenty of events in your lifetime to know how taxing it can be and how you need to be physically and mentally and spiritually solid in order to take on long days, long events, and prioritize that well-being as a way to not just self-protect, but also create new experiences and new stories and new entertainment possibilities. So for you, what does that look like? How do you maintain your mental and physical well-being, considering the demanding nature of your work and just in the past when you were taking this company, a tech company, from zero to multi-million dollars?
Great question. And I will tell you that so many of these things, just like life begets life, so many of these things beget other things. I can tell you that I don't think any of us realize how important our physical health is until we're on the cusp of losing it or some element of it. And the truth is that regardless of a person's philosophical beliefs, if we don't have our health, our physical health, we're going to be extremely limited, if not nullified, from fulfilling the purposes that we want for our lives. As you mentioned, takes physical work. 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago now, I just decided I am going to get myself back into shape. And I went on a radical change. I went to completely gluten-free and dairy-free diet. I absolutely eliminated all forms of snacks and sweets and fast foods and all the things that are kind of normal for the culture, but I could just feel were toxic for my body. I decided to completely abstain from alcohol in every respect, like not even a glass of wine out with friends, because I began to realize that alcohol compromises my immune system. And I would wake up the next day and have the sniffles, and it was real obvious where it was coming from. And so I got on a journey, and then that led to hours and hours of hiking up in these bluffs that are right outside my door. And mental clarity started coming. And I found this fitness center at a small college nearby that has 600 students, but this exceptional property because they're so well endowed. They have this like $20 million athletic facility that only members can get in. Because I live remote, there aren't very many. And it's like way bigger and better than the community needs or the students need. And I just went crazy, hired a trainer. And so now I work out 3 to 5 days a week at that particular place. I hike in the bluffs up there as part of my cardio. And I don't want to make it sound like, I'm cool or anything like that. I just simply want to say the benefits are almost inexpressible. It's unspeakable. Like, for example, just by looking at you, I can tell you're committed to physical health. And you probably know this. When you work on your abs and your legs, literally, you feel like you can conquer the world. When you've got that strength in your core, and when your legs can take anything, and your arms, you can pick up at least anything within reason that you need to pick up, but it just creates confidence and strength at every level.
I couldn't agree more. I was actually in the gym just yesterday. It was leg day and I'm sore right now, but I was leg pressing 405 pounds and man. I had those reps, lined up for me, and I do progressive overload. Actually, that one's what is it? Yeah, that one sword over there is for my bodybuilding. I am a bodybuilder. I'm actually prepping for my next show, and it's natural bodybuilding, because that's important to mention to me, just because there's so many variants when it comes to bodybuilding and how many substances and steroids that there are to enhance your performance. And for me, it's very important to keep it natural. So as I was pushing those 405 pounds on the leg press machine, it's like you just said, like, I'm ready to go and kick some ass now, because if I did that, nothing can stand in my way.
It's true. It's really, and you just captured it, because the physical determination, the physical workout creates a mental framework that couldn't have happened without that. Like, the dots are so connected: physical, mental, spiritual. They're so tied into each other. I love that illustration. Beautiful.
I love it. Well, let me tell you, your dedication to not just your craft, but also your well-being are truly remarkable and admirable, Kraig. And I wish more people would take note and know that when we both talk about things that we're passionate about, is because we really live it and we believe in it. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. Before we close today, where can our audience connect with you?
Hey, the best place would just be simply Kraig at kraigkleemanlive.com. And that's Kraig with a K and Kleeman with a K. So it's Kraig at kraigkleemanlive.com.
And we will have that in our episode notes for anyone that is interested, just so that they have access to those links as well. Thank you again, Kraig, for joining me. And to our listeners, thank you for staying with us for this extraordinary episode of the Events Demystified podcast, diving into so much more than what I initially proposed in the beginning. So I am so truly inspired, Kraig, by your remarkable journey and your innovative way in which you are changing corporate events. So for anyone else that has missed, this is the episode that you want to listen. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated, not just with this episode, but also future episodes that are going to feature some amazing thought leaders and visionaries from the event industry world, just like Kraig. And until next time, keep reimagining, keep innovating, and keep crafting unforgettable experiences that redefine the corporate event scene. This is your host, Anka Trifan, signing off. Thank you so much, Kraig, for being with me today and for all of us that have tuned in.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.